Okay, this story wound up being the feel-good movie of the year. So I see these videos on X with Glenn, and these days you don't know if it's AI, what's going on. And I was so worried about how that was going to go. And in the end, it wound up being a heartwarming story of people standing by one of the most important journalists of our time. So is what Glenn said about the videos. Last night, videos were released online depicting behavior in my private life. Some were distorted and others were not. They were published without my knowledge or consent, and its publication was therefore criminal. Though we do not yet know exactly who is responsible, we are close to knowing, and the motive was a maliciously political one. As for the content of the videos, I have no embarrassment or regret about them. The videos depict consenting adults engaged in intimate actions in their private lives. They all display fully consensual behavior, harming nobody. Obviously, it can be uncomfortable and unpleasant when your private behavior is made public against your will. That's why the behavior is private in the first place. But the only wrongdoing here is the criminal and malicious publication of the videos in an attempt to malign perceived political enemies and advance a political agenda. Others are, of course, free to form their own judgments, as some are prone to do about others' private lives. It won't change my work. I will continue all the many prongs of my journalism and pursue the causes most important to me exactly as before. Yeah, man. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. And you know what? The response was like the final scene of It's a Wonderful Life. Because people that you would not expect, as you will see, jumped in and stood up for Glenn. So Caitlin Johnston, who you would expect, posted this video or reposted it. So Greenwald said this, and then a video surfaced of him engaging in some fairly mild kink, because that's the absolute worst thing anyone had on him. And then the entire political spectrum showed up to defend and support him. Yeah, I'm going to call that a solid win for humanity. Here, Caitlin. So let's see the video.
Are like an apocalyptic cult. They don't recognize moral limits. They don't acknowledge the humanity of Palestinians. They absolutely consider Palestinians to be animals. There's no way you can just do what they've done to Gaza. Bomb every remaining hospital and mosque and school. They're bombing electricity generators for hospitals so that ICU patients on incubators die. They've bombed shelters. They've constantly bombed people in tents. The number of children who are dead, including under 3 years old, is just, as a statistic, is shocking in itself. There's no question the number of people who have died that we hear from Gaza is extremely underestimated, because they only count the people who go through the morgue. Huge numbers of people are still lying under that rubble. There's massive rubble everywhere with bodies underneath who don't make it to the morgue. There are other people who die of disease or hunger who aren't counted because they're not actually killed with bombs or bullets, but they're victims of the Israeli action nonetheless. They've stripped the Palestinians in Gaza of all remaining humanity. I mean, they go to bed every night with Israeli bombers over their head, being terrorized every night that that's the last night their children are going to wake up. I don't even know how you get through this and then maintain any semblance of life, especially the million children in Gaza whose childhood is shaped by this. How do you function? How do you become a normal human being? How do you ever feel safe or stable? Or it's inconceivable.
Yep, that could have done it. Or he actually, there was a lot of speculation after these videos dropped on why his show wasn't on last week. Turns out it wasn't on because he was doing an interview with Tucker Carlson. Suleiman Ahmed, I thought all Muslims are homophobic bigots. He's been very supportive of Glenn through this. Glenn Greenwald said to Tucker Carlson that Israel and Mossad are spying on American citizens, that they also control the CIA and government. Then Israel leaks a video of Glenn Greenwald. To be clear, there is no evidence I'm aware of that proves that contention, but it seems rather obvious to a lot of us, myself included.
A set of files we released described the intelligence relationship that we have with Israel, the NSA has with Israel. Israel is the number one recipient of NSA technology and NSA intelligence. We share more with Israel, even more than we do with the Five Eyes partners who develop this technology. We give more to Israel, more intelligence, raw intelligence about Americans as well, and more intelligence know-how. But at the same time, the documents that describe who are our greatest intelligence threats, who are our greatest intelligence adversaries, who spies on us the most, who is capable of spying out the most, number one on the list is Israel as well. Obviously, the Israelis use, the most dangerous spying programs like Pegasus and others come from Israel, are developed by Israel, are controlled by the Israelis, by which I simply mean to say that Israel uses every weapon at its disposal, including gathering incriminating information about its enemies.
You don't say. You don't say. And many of us have hypothesized why all across the political spectrum does everyone seem to not get what goes on in Israel on purpose? Why? Everybody from Kamala Harris to Lindsey Graham, they all act like they don't get what's going on here. And yeah, that is a plausible explanation because it's such an extreme case of intentional, willful blindness to the obvious, to these horrors, these crimes against humanity, this genocide. I don't know if money is enough to explain it. I don't know if it's simply if simply looking at the AIPAC contributions is enough to explain the nearly universal unwillingness of America's politicians to take this on. And that's where you get into what Whitney writes about a lot. And
no, they're a gang. They're basically gangsters. Now, gangsters have a lot of money to throw around, and they'd rather throw money at you than do whatever they have to do if that doesn't work.
And if the money doesn't work, they move to the blackmail.
They have backup plans. Yeah, of course.
And then if the blackmail doesn't work, don't get on a plane, right?
Right.
Don't get in a car. You better check your brake lines.
Right. Don't cross any railroad tracks on the way home from work.
Yeah, exactly. You might wind up shooting yourself in the chest and then hanging yourself afterwards.
Right.
In a remarkable feat. So Normal Island News put up, and it's worth reading if you want to go look this up, but the headline of their short article on this was, Israel's attempt to destroy Jewish journalist by outing him as gay somehow backfires. Sagar and Jetty. My friend Glenn Greenwald is a courageous warrior who remains one of the most important principled figures of the 21st century. To whoever did this, you fucked with the wrong guy, and you'll live to regret this. This is not Fat Sagar. This is Thin Sagar.
The real Sagar.
Fat Sagar would ever put out something that based. George Galloway. He is an outstanding man. His sexual predilections are his own affair. His journalism for many years has been coruscating, forensic, fearless, and true. The worst people in the world are happy at his discomfort today, but that will pass, and they will still be evil. Well said. Now, there was a little exchange here that was quite good. Anthony Holland. He may be an outstanding journalist, but now those two boys have one more thing to process, which children should not have to which Galloway wisely responded, what, that their parent has sex?
Yeah, that their father's an adult.
Yeah, that's traumatic for anybody. So that just shows how normal gay adoption actually is.
Right.
Every child at some point has to be traumatized by the realization that their parent has sex. Why should they be the exception? Friend of show, Jimmy Dore. The people trying to silence and discredit Glenn have failed spectacularly. This will only bring more attention to his amazing journalism that threatens the powerful. That's what this is all about. The powerful trying to silence one of their strongest critics. This is their playbook, just like what they did to female journalist Kaja Ismailova, should have practiced that before the show, from Azerbaijan, who had sex tapes released in an attempt to silence her. In 2012, after investigating corruption involving President Ilham Aliyev's family, she received a threatening letter with intimate photos taken by hidden cameras in her apartment. When she refused to stop her reporting, the videos were leaked online. Ismailova continued her work, and in 2019, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that Azerbaijan violated her privacy and freedom of expression, ordering the government to pay her damages. I remember that case. Dave Smith, can you imagine a worse PR strategy than attacking someone in a vicious and personal way for the crime of feeling sad for children who are being slaughtered? Now, there was a little response to this that not only shows you how broad the spectrum of support is for Glenn, but what out of tune creeps the Zionists are, even here. Cernovich, I've tried telling them that and get yelled at or called Hamas. Even the right is sick of this shit. The Zionist chimes in. Grok, has Hamas released all the hostages they took on October 7th? You know, it's not the mic drop you guys think it is. I promise you. Zaid Jalani, I think the Israelis are now in a PR death loop where they no longer gain support in any Western country, but are now mostly in-group signaling by repeating all the same slogans over and over. You've got a conversation going where Dave Smith, Cernovich, and Zaid Jalani are all on the same page about the Israelis. Okay? Like this. I don't think this is going the way they thought it would. Jake Shields. If they have blackmail on our journalists, just imagine what they have on our politicians. Hear, hear. Max Blumenthal. My take on these Glenn Greenwald videos is that I support military intervention to stop the genocide in Gaza, consistent with international law, and I encourage all of my fellow humans to do the same. Now that's a mic drop. Comrade Misty. Kind of cool to see so many people from both the left and the right coming to Greenwald's defense. I know left and right are truly meaningless in the big picture, but I still love to see it. This is the way. Batya Ungar Sargon. That one surprised me more than any because she's particularly unhinged, in my humble opinion. I stand with Glenn Greenwald against this unconscionable attempt to silence him. I don't agree with Glenn about some obvious issues that are very close to my heart, but I admire him endlessly, and I seek to be as courageous as he is, both professionally and personally. I am disgusted and utterly enraged by what was done to him. Stay strong, my friend. Now, Israel has no more devout a propagandist in its arsenal than Batya. When you've lost Batya, you know you've really crossed a line. Rob Schneider. Glenn Greenwald is and will continue to be perhaps the most important journalist in the world. In a world where even the word journalist no longer holds the same meaning, Mr. Greenwald brings back its legitimacy with conviction, honesty, courage, and fearlessness. Megan Kelly, love and respect Glenn Greenwald. Can't wait to have him on again soon and ignore this attempt to embarrass him as the irrelevant BS it is. Tim Poole, Glenn Greenwald is gay. That was pretty good, Tim. I'll give him that one. Matt Gates, I don't care what Glenn does in private if it doesn't hurt anyone. No evidence suggests it does. I'm glad he does what he does to expose corruption. That matters way more to me than how he likes to fuck. Well said. Well said, Mr.
It'd be nice if he were the attorney general and instead of the unhinged, blood in her eyes maniac that we have now. But I guess the deep state wouldn't allow for that.
They wouldn't allow that. They would allow for nominating him.
Right.
And then saying, we tried.
Right.
Right. Charlie Kirk. I am a massive fan of Glenn's work, even though we don't agree on everything all the time. He's a free speech warrior, one of the most consistent journalists anywhere, and he's earned my respect. The leaking of his private videos is clearly politically motivated, criminal, and disgusting. The slurs against him are equally disgusting. If those who did this think they will advance their cause by trying to embarrass Glenn, if that ends up being true, they are dead wrong. The exact opposite is sadly true. All right. Very, very well said by Mr. Kirk. Candace, I said this on my last show ahead of maternity leave, but would like to reiterate here. Glenn Greenwald is one of the most important and honest voices of our time. Everyone should follow and support his journalism. You can subscribe to his channel here. And, when she makes a gesture like that, that's going to get you some subscribers. That has 2 million views.
Oh, yeah.
And to close it out, Brianna summed it up very well. I love that the one thing we can all agree on is supporting Glenn Greenwald. Now, I don't want to show any of the negative ones, but honestly, there's not much to show. You got Richard Spencer, asshole, and you've got Chloe Cole, who, she's damaged and has just kind of taken on the politics of the people who took her in, as very often happens with these people who wind up on the wrong side of the wokies. So I'm not going to blame her. She had a horrible thing done to her. I'm not going to attack her. But, what she said was pretty gross. I think she's been manipulated, and that girl's been through a lot. But other than those two, that's it, man. I mean, it's pretty much a 99.9% versus a couple of grifters and unhinged people attacking Glenn. So this was, hey, man, you want to see something hopeful, especially at this moment when so many of us feel like, we were making common cause on speech with some people who are, considered more right-wing than ourselves, who have been so disappointed by the way they've conducted themselves since Trump got into power. And even after October 7th, I mean, a lot of them have been terrible, including Batya. That's kind of why that surprises me. That she stood up for him. We've seen so many of these people who are willing to co-sign these suppression of student speech, deportation of visa holders. But remarkably, this is what we had hoped for when we tried to form a coalition with some of these elements on some of these issues. But this particular incident seems to have brought out the best in a lot of people, and it's nice to see, because we haven't seen very much of it lately.
Yeah, for sure. And I made a short statement about this when I hosted Jimmy's on Friday. The thing I noticed is that you had people, as you just demonstrated there, of all political camps unite behind support for Glenn, and you did have a lot of Israel supporters support him. So I'm not saying that all Israel supporters joined the pile-on, but I am saying all who joined the pile-on were Zionists. The only people I saw who actually tried to make this smear happen and work were Zionist accounts, mostly with a couple hundred followers tops, if that. And so I tried to, my appeal was to use this as a teachable moment to the Zionists who supported Glenn. Like, if you're a Zionist who supports Glenn, take a look at the people next to you who are going after Glenn for this and think, what the fuck is wrong with them? And maybe the same thing that's wrong with them that compels them to join this smear campaign, maybe that's the thing that's wrong with them that makes them so fervently supportive of Israel, right? It's like the people who joined this, but I saw, and like I said, these were, we don't want to dignify them with showing their shit, but it was, with the Israeli flag, emoji in the handle and the Star of David. They're a Christian Zionist. And I love the one, they quote tweeted his video clip where he talked about Israel has no moral limits. This guy says Israel has no moral limits, ha ha ha, as if there's a moral
Oh
equivalency
yeah, no,
between
that's
genocide
totally equivalent.
and what he
yeah.
did. Like
Yeah.
they are fucked up. They, when I read ads for
but Michael Rappaport told us that's one of those selling points of Israel. You
right,
can
is
come
that you
over
can
here,
go-
you can fuck
yeah,
anybody
yeah, right,
you
yeah,
want.
they're gay, right?
It's
They're for gay rights.
Israel, right? Look, we got a pride flag right here, right where you get the kebabs.
No, there was something wrong with them. When I read our CBD ads from time to time, I mentioned how, about 4 years ago, I had interrupted sleep every night. That's the way it must be for these people. Like when you have to sleep and you're tired, but you can't, the signal just can't get from your brain to the rest of your nervous system.
Yeah.
There's a disconnect there. There's a fuse there
Right, yeah,
that's
yeah.
broken.
Yeah.
And that's the way these Zionists are. There's wiring in them that is broken, that is fucked up. It's not
Yeah.
normal. Like the idea that you could think that there is a moral equivalency between a sex act, a consensual
Right.
sex act
Yep.
between adults, legal adults, and doing what they're doing, you have to be just something is fucking wrong with you if that is where your morals guide you. There's nothing weird or perverted about having sex. What's weird and perverted is to try and ruin a guy over that and try to embarrass a guy with that. That's what's weird. You're weird if you watched that and thought, wow, this is going to take him down. Let me share it. You're a perv if that was your attitude towards it. There's nothing weird or perverted or aberrant or deviant about any of that.
Well, and what we're seeing with the Zionists, which we're going to run with that assumption, is the more desperate they get, the more everything they do is just not well thought out, and it's all backfiring on them. Really. So you thought in the year 2025 that video was going to end the career of an independent journalist not beholden to corporate media.
Right.
Really. Like because for him, his bosses are the people who consume his content.
Right.
As it should be. Did you really think they were all going to go? People who like Glenn Greenwald were suddenly going to go, Glenn, I knew he was gay, but I didn't know he actually acts on it.
No. I mean, it's of course. I mean, whoever thought this was going to take him down as a complete dipshit. First of all, the guy has stared down his own government. The guy has stared down much bigger and scarier adversaries than whatever, weakling thought that this was going to take him down.
His government in 2 countries.
In 2 countries, his husband, David Miranda, was targeted by the government as well. No, I mean, they are very, very tough. Glenn is a very, very brave and tough guy, and there was no chance that this was going to succeed, and it didn't. And the thing that was encouraging was to see essentially the entire internet unite in his
very heartening.
Yes.
Very heartening in a dark time.
Please clap.